I'm Emily Koku Fesler. I am a native Hawaiian and Irish woman. I'm in academia. I'm a psychotherapist. I am a wife. I'm a mother of four. I work a lot with couples. I'm a marriage and family
Mhm,
therapist, but I also specialize in sex therapy. People have strange ideas about what you do, but
mhm,
often
mhm.
it's working through high conflict with couples struggling. People fight about the same things: money, sex,
Mhm.
kids, and recently, technology. You're always on
Oh,
your phone, or who are you texting?
right.
Being a sex
Being
therapist, doing sex therapy is rarely Cosmo magazine style sex tips. It's working through the intricacies of splitting up domestic labor or feeling heard and known by your partner. It is definitely not what I thought I was going to do. I grew up,
mm,
my native Hawaiian father, I think like many kind of Asian Pacific Islander families, the idea was you're going to be a doctor, you're going to go to Stanford and be a doctor. It wasn't until I got into early acceptance medical school, I hated a lot of it.
mm.
But I had this amazing graduate teaching assistant. I should reach out to her because she was so integral in my career and probably has no idea. Paige, you are wonderful.
Oh,
She taught the human sexuality class and she was
mm,
a doctoral student in marriage and family therapy. I loved everything about how she taught, how she thought about the world. And I was like, I really think this is
mm.
what I want to do. And so I went on to get a PhD in human development and family studies, work with couples, be an LMFT, and do sex therapy. I started by working in rape crisis in
Oh,
Lubbock, Texas, and
mhm.
went to graduate school in Auburn, Alabama. And I ended up working with incarcerated youth that were sex offenders. And it's just grown. So I've worked in
Wow.
the sex area of therapy for a long time. It's amazing how interconnected it all is. Working with offenders or survivors are often one and the same. Uh, I was surprised to find most offenders I worked with were also survivors of sexual abuse.
Yeah,
Uh, in my immature way of thinking, there were people that were hurt and people doing the hurting, but
yeah.
it's more similar than not. It's about helping people go back to whatever the emotional space was around what happened to them and help them either show up for themselves or even just talking about it and getting it out of their body. You talk to this woman about vicarious trauma. You've got to name it, tame it, and
Tame
reframe
it,
it. And
reframe it.
that
That sounds
is
like Jenny.
yes, it was Jenny. I loved it. That's what I do in sex therapy. Name it to tame it and reframe it. Your body keeps the score. It remembers it's hard to function as a sexual adult when you've got trauma in the past.
Most offenders have been victims themselves and repeat the cycle if they don't get proper treatment early on
Sometimes people experiencing trauma in adulthood have had trauma in their
in the
past.
past. What are some common misconceptions or stigmas surrounding this field?
Every now and then, people in my life ask me specific questions. Most people don't that know me really well. Instead, it's people that I'll just randomly meet at my
Mhm,
husband's work party or mixer or other things. And
mhm.
it's so funny because I always have to go in my head. Do I tell people that I'm a sex therapist? Do I just say I'm a professor? Do I say something else? Depending on the context, I'll say different things, but almost always, if I bring up that I'm a sex therapist, somebody will ask, "Hey, can I ask you a question?"
Mm,
A lot of people have no idea what a sex therapist is, often
mhm.
confused with sex workers, which is a totally different field. I purposefully got it because it is uncomfortable and it's definitely not a couch you can lay down on. I want people to
Oh.
know there will be no sex acts happening in this room. We're working on the dynamics in your relationship that get in the way of you wanting and being able to connect sexually.
Mhm.
Almost everybody uses the word intimacy instead of sex or intercourse. Intimacy is a part of it, but distinct. You can be intimate with a friend. Intimacy is about knowing someone and feeling known by them, which again can be a big part of the sex part, but also separate. People have misconceptions about what sex therapy means or they're embarrassed about it. I remember my first practice that I started was housed within an OBGYN clinic. People would be less embarrassed to go to a medical
Yeah.
center and park in that parking lot than a sex therapist. But, and yeah, it's funny. Every now and then someone will ask me for a business card, and I'm like, I haven't had business cards in 15 years.
Who
No one
has business cards?
got a business card that says sex therapist on it. But mostly sex therapists are working in conjunction with medical doctors. Sometimes it's physiological stuff that's going on, but a lot of
Okay.
times it's psychological stuff that's going on. If you can name it to tame it and reframe it, it is satisfying and quick work. If you can
Mhm.
help people get out whatever is going on inside of them that's keeping them from being able to connect or enjoy themselves or enjoy being sexual with their partner. Once we name it, the taming happens quickly.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
agree.
such a fulfilling part of this job when couples are connect, look at each other, smile, and give that knowing look across the couch. I don't even know what you guys are talking about, but I love the look.
I get couples, individuals, adults in my private practice who struggles with they just don't have the same
Sex drive and your partner's sex drive
yeah,
are on the
doesn't align.
yeah.
Yes. How do
Man.
you fix
So
that
there
fix?
is a woman, Emily Koku, and she has a book called Come As You Are, but she talks about this in such an eloquent and easy to digest way. So I'm going to talk about it using her framework. I'm definitely
Okay.
going to do it a disservice, but she talks about two types of sex drives: spontaneous
Mhm.
and responsive. What we see in movies is spontaneous. I'm in a rowboat with Ryan Gosling. It starts raining and we want to rip each other's clothes off. We just have this idea that we want sex and our body follows. It's not the dominant way people behave. A lot of people don't think about sex and then go find it.
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't start thinking about it until their body is already partially there. There is this great example, and I'll tell this story to clients all the time. And I'll say, a few weeks ago, a friend of mine was having a birthday party and she was telling me about it. I was so excited, ready to go. And then the evening of the party came. It'd been a long day at work. I thought, I'm just going to send her a quick text and say, sorry, I'm not going to make it. As I pick up my phone, she sends me a picture from the venue. It's all set up. She's so excited. Can't wait for you to get here. And then I'm like, oh, I can't disappoint her. I can't say no. So I tell my family, just going to go for an hour, maybe a drink, and then I'll be home really quickly. And at 2 in the morning, I'm surrounded by her and our friend having a great time saying, oh my God, this is so great. We should do this more often. And for a lot of people, that's what a responsive sexual desire is. It's not that you don't have the desire. Sometimes you have to get your body in it before your mind is like, oh, yeah, I like this.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, it's like running. That makes sense. Like any activity, you have to remember it's gonna be great in the end.
yes,
It's
yes.
gonna be great.
I use car metaphors a lot, even though I don't know a lot about cars. We always talk about the sex drive, the accelerator moving forward, but we don't talk
Mhm.
about the sex brake. And if you're in your car and your foot is slammed on the brake, it doesn't matter how much you press the accelerator, you're not going anywhere. You're just going to burn out your engine. Sometimes it's not just working on the sex drive, but figuring
Mhm.
out how to get our foot off the brake so that when we press on the accelerator, we're actually going to go places.
Can you say more about that?
I think a lot of times I work
The
not necessarily about slowing down or knowing when to stop, but what are the barriers getting in the way of wanting to participate in sexual activity?
Mm.
We talk about turn ons, right? But what about turn offs? There are a lot of similar turn offs. If we think about a typical date night, if you ask a
Mhm.
couple that's been together for a while, what do you do on date night? Almost
Mhm.
everybody's going to say some version of, we'll go to dinner and a movie. But for most people, if you are full after dinner, you do not feel sexy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
why are we waiting till the end of a date night after
Mm.
dinner when we're exhausted to try and connect sexually? That is a failing plan. I have this crass way of talking with clients. Consider for 1 week incorporating the fuck first rule on date nights. Have sex before you go out to dinner. You're fresh, not exhausted, not full. Then you connect, the pressure's off, and the afterglow, all of those hormones and endorphins, it ends up being great for a lot of people.
Yeah. Having sex first before you go out, it like sets the date mode. You're connected, feel good because you're not bloated and you're not wasted
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever. But then it builds from that connection. You have a good conversation because you just
Yeah.
had sex. When you go home, you might do
You
it some
might do it
more.
again because you feel connected and wonderful, not because it feels like it's the pressure of it.
You
It's
have to
date
do it.
night and we have a babysitter and I'd
Yeah.
really like to sleep. It gets barriers out of the way. When I talk about the sexual break, it's what are the things that are getting in the way are keeping your foot on the brake of your libido? It could be I'm touched out by the kids who constantly need things from me. It
Yes.
could be my boss wrote me this shitty email and now it's all I can think about. It could be I don't feel great about your body right now, thinking about your partner.
Mm.
Who knows what it is? But often the things making us push our foot down on the brake are difficult to discuss. And sex is difficult to discuss. People think they have a libido problem, but they like to have sex to connect. But it's getting naming, taming, and reframing all of the
Mhm.
things that are getting in the way, pressing the brakes.
I see. That makes sense because if you don't know what's turning you off, self-blame, there's that expectation that, oh, you want to feel like they're dating you again. It has to be organic. You
Mhm.
have to go on the date first and get intimate. It has to come naturally. Reliving moments when you were dating, you can't be
Yeah.
in that mood.
And I'm so glad that you said that because I've been working with couples together for a long time, 10 plus years. One of the things we talk about is planning for sex. I used to say scheduled sex, and everybody would give me the same cringe, ick face because no one wants to schedule sex. They want it to be
Mhm.
spontaneous, organic, and
Mhm.
I love everything about that. However, if you're waiting for it to spontaneously and organically happen when you've both got careers and you're taking care of children, pets, house, or the mortgage, friends, or family, anything important, you schedule dentist
Yeah.
appointments or going to the gym or getting your oil changed or whatever else. It's a great way to get couples on the same page. If I can get them to agree to plan, they can come up with creative ways to help each other. One of my favorite examples is this couple I worked with, they had 5 young kids. Impossible. They couldn't even
Mhm.
get a babysitter to watch their 5 young kids, and so we finally got to a point where, they came up with this great plan, and he worked outside of the home, she worked inside of the home taking care of the kids. On their planned sex days, he would leave for work early and she would make sure to have an afternoon activity that was outside, swimming, something that was going to make the kids extra tired. He would come home early. They'd make mac and cheese, just like carby, warm,
Mhm.
delicious goodness that the kids all love, but also helps them ease into an earlier bedtime. They started working as a team to get the kids down. And then it felt, yes, we worked as a team and we did this well, like high five. And then they were able to have time for date night, time for sex, whatever. It was great for them. Within a month, they were done coming to therapy because they had figured out what they needed to connect.
I love that. It's really just shifting your mindset on how you view scheduled sex. Because I think a
Mhm.
lot of the misconception is, do we have to schedule? Am I not attractive enough that you won't be spontaneously wanting to do it? It's just like all those
Yes,
different negative
absolutely.
barriers.
And
But if you shift your mindset,
those are
yeah,
really made up in our heads, right?
yes.
Just because you're scheduling it doesn't mean you can't send flirty text messages all day.
Mhm.
It's not like a dentist appointment where you just show up for your exam. You
Yeah.
can schedule and plan for it all day.
Yeah, because you know you're gonna have amazing sex, so you prep for it. Like maybe you'll eat just salad, maybe you'll wear cute little
Yeah.
lingerie. It's just being able to have that preparation. For those who wants to have the notebook experience, right? If that's how they envision their sex, they can prepare for it if they schedule it. It's more like you're prioritizing it. It has nothing to do with lack of attraction.
Think about the last vacation. You
Mhm.
probably had to plan for it. It went a lot better than if we could just say, screw it, let's go to the beach today.
Mhm.
Forget work obligations. For most couples, especially when you've been together for some time, you've got to plan for it if you want it to happen. Get over that mental speed bump. Just start planning. It can be so good.
Amazing tips. I hear it all the time. I feel unseen, unwanted, undesired. Those could be thoughts because you're not giving each other time to prepare when you're not
Yeah, if you're in the
in
mood,
alignment.
your partner's not, and you get rejected, like, ouch.
Rejection.
Make you want to initiate again. It's embarrassing. It's shameful, even with your partner that loves you, feeling rejected. We're not good at that. If you've ever tried to decide where to go out to eat, almost never want the same thing at the same time. And that's
Right.
food. So, how do we expect our partner to want the same thing at the same time with sex? We can't even decide tacos or burgers on a typical night. This has been such a fun experience.
I know the time went by fast, but I do want to hear about your name. You said it's a story. Now I'm like really intrigued and interested in knowing what your name is about.
I am Native Hawaiian. I have a very long name in Olelo, Hawaii, or the Hawaiian language. And so I know from the accent that I have, you would not expect it. But like I said, I did grow up in the South mostly. So that's why my voice sounds like this.
Mm.
But my father gave all of us children long Hawaiian names, and they tell a story. And so I'll tell the whole thing in just a second, but I'm Emily Pearl, and I'm my oldest daughter. Her middle name is Pearl as well. That's after my grandmother. The family lived in Pearl City, the cliffs surrounding Pearl Harbor. And much like how my 13-year-old daughter is shaped now and how I was shaped when I was 13, she was long and lean. And part of her job for her family was to shimmy up trees and shake down coconuts to sell. On the day of the Pearl Harbor bombing, she was in the tree and saw the planes coming and screamed because, of course, it's terrifying. And the rest of our community all gathered together and watched it happen. And after that, everyone always referred to her as Pearl instead of her name, May. And the Pearl piece is really important to me. And I was so happy that I was able to pass that down to my daughter as
I
well.
love that. Yeah.
But
What a great
so
story.
the whole name is Emily Pearl, Kanoilani, Maluna, Onapalia Okono, Kuipo, Akeli, Kulime Kaini, Namae Mai, Kemele, Onauna, Okahumokuma. Paikaina, Kapiolani, Malama Lama, Ovaine, Mopuno Okioki as Dama. Aloha no Komako, Ikapua, Okeali, Kekwini Nui, Okapakapika, Kahunoku, Fessler. And so I know it incredibly long, and it tells a whole story. And I remember being a kid and thinking it was weird. And I ended up having an opportunity to go to Kamehameha, a
Mhm.
school for Native Hawaiian or people of Native Hawaiian descent. And I had this one teacher. He was my Hawaiian culture teacher. His name was Kumukauka. And he would make me say my name in its entirety every day before I was able to come into the classroom. So that's where I learned how to say it. and
Oh my God.
and I was so mad at him at the time. But again, it's one of those, I think that's been a theme for me. I was really mad in my
Mhm.
adolescent years about the lessons that I was really grateful for now that I'm an adult. But again, I'm so grateful for that. And my hope is that my children will get an opportunity to learn more about their Hawaiian culture as well. I did not pass down the very long name to my
I
children.
was gonna ask you that. Oh, do they have a long name too?
My dad helped with my oldest daughter, or with all of them actually, but I told him, I was like, you get one word only. So it's got to be a really good one. So they each have a Hawaiian middle name, but significantly shorter than the rest of our family's Hawaiian name traditions have
That's
been.
crazy.
My older sister graduated from Kamehameha, and they said her entire name. Hers a little
Really?
bit longer than mine. And so she had a solid 60 seconds up on the stage after she had walked across to get her diploma, where they're just standing there while they finished.
Is it your sister that was in the World Guinness
She was. My
World
immediately
Record?
older sister was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest middle name early on in her life. I think by the time she was 5 or 6, she no longer held the record. But
Wow, that's impressive, impressive. And I think I'm gonna have you on again because I have more questions. Um,
oh, I am.
yeah, I love that. I love that. So how can we
um,
find you?
The best way to find me is to go to my website, therapyco.net. There's a contact box and any information you could want.
Awesome.